Joyful blessings. This is Kaylin Castell. Very excited to share with you Pluto in Aquarius from 2024 to 2044. It's gonna be about 20 years. Now, the Pluto's been doing a little back and forth from last year in 2023. It went into Aquarius for a few weeks and then it went back into Capricorn. It's going back into Aquarius on January 20th. We're going to look at that in a minute in 2024. And then it goes back into Capricorn for a few weeks till the November 19th of 2024. And then it's going to be there until 2044 when it's going to do a little back and forth dance between Pisces. And so we have 20 years of this powerful energy illuminating and guiding us over the next 20 years. So something to understand is the seasonal sign of Aquarius. The sun travels through the seasonal sign of Aquarius from January 19th to February 18th. Now, it is 365 and a quarter days. So this year in 2024, at the time of this recording, the sun will be entering Aquarius on January 20th. So it's within a day or so of these dates that I have given you. Sometimes it's the day before, sometimes it's the day after. But here's the thing to really note, because the season of Aquarius is overlaying the constellation of the goatfish or the sea goat, also known as Capricornus, also known as Capricorn. So we can see that this is an additional bit of information to understand what's going on with Pluto in going into Aquarius, because this is going to be the underlying energy as Pluto travels through this constellation. Now, the sun travels through the goatfish from January 21st to February 16th, based on how astronomers are dividing up the constellation. And that means it's going from 0 Aquarius to 27 Aquarius, this constellation is overlaid by this seasonal sign. And if you want to know more about the difference between signs and constellations, I will put a video that I created that gives you all the visuals and so on about that in a 15-minute video in the show notes. So basically what we're looking at is how the goatfish or the sea goat or Capricornus, depending on what you want to call it, is influencing the seasonal sign of Aquarius, because the constellations and the seasons each have their different energies, but when they come together, then there's a new energy that's being activated in it's part of how we could say that evolution occurs. There's this movement of the seasons, 1 degree every 72 years through the constellations. So each season is in a constellation for about 2,160 years. It takes about 26,000 years for it to go through all the constellations. So every season will go through every constellation every 26,000 years. But what happens now is that the goatfish is influencing the season of Aquarius. The constellation of the goatfish has links with the elements of earth, where the goat usually is, but the fish, water, the feelings. So if we think of earth as embodiment and water as feelings, this constellation has these elements connected with it. And Aquarius, of course, is an air sign, so it's about the mental realms. But as it's traveling through this constellation, it's really also about embodiment and feelings. We'll see more about that as we go. Hence, we can imagine that the sign of Aquarius is being infused with earthy, embodied practicality, guided by the power of feeling our feelings. And this has been going on, but it's going to get enhanced and spotlighted and magnified with Pluto going through this constellation and through this seasonal sign. Now, something else to know about the constellation of Capricornus, as it's called by astronomers, is that it's linked to the cornucopia, or the horn of plenty, going back to the ancient Greeks. And this represents all good things in overflowing infinite abundance that can never be exhausted. And you can see here, I have this image of a cornucopia, the horn of plenty, as a kind of looks like the constellation of the goatfish. So that may be why this constellation has been associated with the cornucopia, and maybe it's why it's it's referred to as Capricornus. So something just to keep in mind, that because Pluto is also connected to wealth, unimaginable wealth, all the deep riches, when we're willing to do our own personal inner work that we can connect with. So these symbols work together to assure us that if we're working with these mysteries, then we can come into a time where we have greater wealth, greater resources. Capricorn also represents resources and how to use them in the most effective and efficient way. So Capricornus, or cornucopia, would be about that as well. And that's going to be part of what infuses Pluto in Aquarius. Now, this is a star map for the for the day of January 20th, 2024, when the Sun and Pluto are going to be exactly conjunct at the last degree of Capricorn. And so for those of you who don't know, there are 30 degrees in a sign and 60 minutes in a degree. And so what's going to happen is Sun and Pluto come together at 29:59, the most comprehensive degree of Capricorn possible. And I've done several other videos on this. If you want more insights, I'll put some of the links in the show notes if you want to go into that. But this 29:59 point is like a seed point, or maybe activation point of like a new moon at this time, but it's with Pluto. And a few minutes later, the Sun will enter Aquarius, and then then Pluto will enter Aquarius a few hours later, and you can see that they're here on the edge of the goatfish. And it's the way the constellation is drawn isn't necessarily how they show how the astronomers determine when, the length of the constellation, or when a planet enters that constellation. So, as we've already talked about. So here's something about Pluto and Aquarius, just to keep in mind, to kind of set the stage for what we're going to be looking at. Idealistic Aquarius tends to dismiss the reality of our shadow, that everything's fine, it's all in divine plan, divine timing. It's just everything's happening in the way that it should be. We should just trust that, blah, 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 and doesn't necessarily want to look at the fact that there might be things that need attending. So the next 20 years, Pluto is shining a light on the shadow of Aquarius, especially the perspective that everything is unfolding as it's intended to, so there's no need to deal with it. We may find that there's, if the tsunami's coming, or if the fire's happening, we need to get out of its way. It's a reality. We can't just stand there and say, oh, it's just happening the way it should, or happening the way it's supposed to. So dealing with the shadow is going to be a big feature of Pluto in Aquarius over the next 20 years. Ignoring the shadow means it will get more intense until it's dealt with. So these are some factors to keep in mind. Now, Pluto, I like to look at all the outer planets as an initiator, teacher, and guide. And so Pluto, as a teacher and initiator and guide, is focusing on empowerment through alchemically transforming our personal and collective shadow when we surrender and face our fears. And sometimes we don't even have a choice. It's like, if the tsunami's coming, you don't have a choice unless you can outrun it, which is probably unlikely. If you're standing on the shore, you're probably not going to outrun it. So then you might just surrender and say, okay, this is what's next. But I did actually, we'll just share quickly. I had a dream where I saw a tsunami coming, and I was like, I shouted something and was my kids were young at the time, and I was trying to help them or something. And then I covered my head, and there was just water around my feet. The big wall of water didn't hit. So, because in a sense, I was kind of just surrendering to it, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So, and that's often how it works with Pluto. So just keep that in mind. So here's some helpful Pluto questions that you could use as we go through this next 20 years. What would it take to surrender and face my deepest fears? Ones I don't even know I have. So I am empowered in ways I haven't even yet imagined. So that's one question. And another question would be, what would it take to transmute and transform my addictions expectations, and limited perspectives that are holding me back from experiencing the magnificence of my true self so I can be free to be me. So if you think about it, uh, we have all kinds of addictions and we have all kinds of expectations and limited perspectives that we may be not even aware of. And so that might be part of the journey, is to become more aware of them and then surrender them, transmute and transform them, that sort of thing. So Aquarius has a shadow. It can be overly idealistic and eccentric, or the shadow side of the new age. A lot of people have talked about that, light polarized, being, um, oh, there's another one. I can't think of the name of it. But anyway, too mental, too detached, too aloof, believes all problems can be solved with the mind, that you don't need any other thing or technology. It can be it's done with, it's solved with technology. Disconnected from feelings and body, not being embodied. And then another perspective, a shadow perspective, is I'm right even if I'm not really right, because I'm not willing to look at the fact that I might not be right, because I've just got my point of view and that's that. Being easily bored and on to the next project. And this one I experienced a lot with my stepfather, who was a triple Aquarius, and he was always starting projects and getting bored and then dropping them and starting a new project. And I just watched that and was like, not that does he never completed anything. So that can be a challenge, because he got bored and he was always wanting to move to different places because he'd get bored. So that is definitely a shadow side of Aquarius. Being overly sensitive to the energy of others and the environment is also a shadow side of Aquarius. They don't want you to touch them. They don't want you to interfere with their vibrational field. That aloof part, that detached part, it's like, don't come near me. That kind of thing, being overly protective of themselves. Being light polarized, again, that was the thing. I probably should have uh, taken that one out because it's already at the first one, but yeah, there is no shadow. Now, the gifts of Aquarius, this is very exciting. Being in service to soul through self-exploration. So it's considered a fixed sign, an air sign, a fixed sign. Um, Fixed doesn't really tell us what it's about. But if we look at in service to soul, in service to our self-exploration, our soul's journey, who we are and why we're here. And it doesn't mean selfish, it doesn't mean it's bad, it just means that there is a willingness to have that be important in your life. And so, very cool, Aquarian gift. Logical mind, brilliant ideas, and unique perspectives, also a gift when it's uh, showing up in a healthy way. Eagle's eye perspective, cosmic perspective. And just so you know, eagles can fly very high. I got a chance to see this back in like 1999, 2000. A golden eagle was flying over. There were a couple of us who were doing a ceremony, and this eagle just was flying in circles over us, and it kept flying higher and higher and higher until it was just this tiny little dot, and then it disappeared. I was like, oh my gosh, they really do fly close to the sun. So it does have that huge eagle's eye perspective. So just keeping that in mind, being innovative, revolutionary, visionary, um, seeing things from a big picture perspective, and maybe seeing all the pieces of the puzzle before they're in place, but seeing how they need to be brought together so they can be put into place. Very cool. It's also about furthering consciousness through revolutionary, cutting edge, unusual, ahead of their time ideas. And insights often lead to unexpected sudden changes that further evolutionary growth through the experience of freedom to be oneself. Freedom is a very important aspect for Aquarius. So freedom through expanded states of consciousness and freedom through higher expressions of love and truth as well. And we're talking about real truth, not our just made up what we think is truth. So the Aquarius gifts are amazing. And so as I'm thinking about them, I was in the car the other day and I heard this song, Fly Like an Eagle, and I said, oh my gosh, this is the anthem for Pluto in Aquarius, to fly like an eagle, to let my spirit carry me, to go through the revolution, and also to, I think it's very true about time slipping into the future. But this verse, feed the babies who don't have enough to eat, shoot the children with no shoes on their feet, house the people living in the street. Oh, oh, there's a solution through the revolution. And I want to fly like an eagle till I'm free. And this is so much all the Aquarian energies that we're speaking into right now. And Pluto's here to help us see everything that's in the way of that so that it can be transmuted and transformed so we can then live that, so we can be free, so we can fly like an eagle. Now, one of the things I looked at was the planetary aspects for Pluto, uh, that for conjunctions. I didn't look at the squares, oppositions, and all of that, but I did look at the conjunctions. And in 2033, Jupiter and Pluto come together at 14, almost 15 degrees Aquarius, right at the cross quarter point. This is an amazing thing. I'll probably do another video talking about this a little bit more later. So if you want to get notified when that happens, be sure you're subscribed if you're not. And also, I'm going to put a link in the show notes for what Pluto and Jupiter uh, conjunctions are and how astounding they've been through life. And I have to say, I get very excited about it because I was born with Pluto and Jupiter conjunct. My grandson in 2020 was born with Jupiter and Pluto exactly conjunct on April 5th of 2020. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how this manifests. But anyway, I'll put a link to an ebook that I created on Jupiter and Pluto conjunctions that you can look at there to get more information. So now we're just going to wrap this up with a quote. It's featured in the Shamanic Astrology Handbook. I will put uh, a link to this also in the show notes. And Val Valerian, he wrote a whole lot of books. He had a lot of insights in all kinds of things. But this quote we use in the Shamanic Astrology Handbook to describe Aquarius. All life forms should have the right and the opportunity to have an existence endowed with the freedom to produce the maximum amount of probable lines of reality in an evolving direction by choice, not by force, but by choice, without repression of awareness or manipulation of physical, mental, or spiritual aspects. And so this is what Pluto in Aquarius is here to help fulfill this intention. We could say so that we have the freedom to be who we are. We have the freedom to experience and express ourselves. We have the right to choose our own evolutionary path. It's not forced on us. We're not enslaved to something else and that sort of thing. So Pluto and Aquarius, that whole AI thing and all of that is going to be a feature of Pluto and Aquarius, but I leave that to others to talk about because this is what really excites me about Pluto and Aquarius.